They did a good thing that they laughed at him. Now, the Gemara is going to explain why. I just want to pause it for a second because there's a beautiful Yesod in this Gemara. Some Sofer explains, why was he punished like that? Why did they laugh at him? Because rather than davening that what comes out of his mouth should be true, he said, I want them to be impressed by me. I care what they think about me. And a person should never care about what others think about him. You hear this? So there's a famous mashal. Right. You have to act in a certain way. You have to make sure that people, you have to care. No, you have to act in a way that they don't say that you're doing the wrong thing. But don't care about what other, don't. Now, listen to this. There's a famous mashal. I just want to finish it off differently than everybody usually says it. The mashal is a guy was walking, he was going from one place to another with his son, and he's on a donkey, and his son was down below. And a guy comes towards him and says, what's going on here? You're on a donkey, going to let your son walk like that? He's a young kid. He says, oh, you're right. So he gets off the donkey, he puts his son on the donkey. And then the next guy comes by and he says, chutzpah, the father is walking, letting your son do that to you, taking your spot on the donkey. You're right. So he goes on the donkey together. And they're going like that, and then they bump into a guy, and the guy says, what's wrong with you? Tsar Belachayim, 2 people on a donkey, and the donkey's like this. So they scratch their head and they go, what are the options? I was on the ground, he's on the ground, we're both on the donkey. The only option left is, we're going to lift up the donkey. So they take the donkey, the father takes the donkey, puts him on his shoulders, and starts walking. And of course, the 4th person passes by and says, it's Meshuggah. I'm Meshuggah. You didn't have to say anything. He just said, Meshuggah, and kept on walking. But here's the punchline. How many of us are walking around with donkeys on our shoulders? Because at the end of the day, you cannot live life based on what other people think. And look at this. There's a famous book. The top regrets of people that died. There's a woman that worked in a ward with people that are dying, and she did a whole research and she wrote a book. The number one on the list, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life of others expected of me. The number one thing, not what your father and mother want from you, and not what your friends want, what you think is real, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of you. And that's the taina over here. Why did Reb Abba care what they thought of him? He should have cared whether his pshat is a good pshat, but he wanted to impress them. What do you care to impress other people?